Hey, welcome to Lady Overlander Radio. Tonight we're speaking with Lucy Barnard of Tangles and Tales. Stay tuned.
Grab your favorite drink, whether it's a coffee, cocktail, or tea, and get ready. It's Ladies' Night on Lady Overlander Radio.
The Lady Overlander Radio podcast is sponsored by Frontrunner Outfitters, Midland Radio, Go Treads, Sport Keg, CB Adventure Supply, Adventure Trail Outfitters, Overland Spices, and the More Expo. Hey, Arla. Hey, girl. Hey.
Hey, girl. Hey.
I have a surprise for you.
Oh, Lord.
You want to see it?
I don't know. Is it PG rated or
Yeah, of course. This is a family show.
kid friendly? I don't want it then.
Oh.
Just kidding.
All right. So I didn't get a chance to update the intro yet, but watch this.
Ooh. Ah,
what do you think?
That's so pretty.
Our new logo.
Our new logo.
And I
just dropped like hotcakes.
Yeah.
One of them.
Yeah. So we have a couple of different logo designs. We just met with Jared and Kayla of Shop Overland Apparel, and they worked with us. Jared's amazing. Came up with some new logos for us. And he's ordering all of the stuff to make all the shirts and all the things, and we'll be launching some new merchandise soon in the shop. So, and we've got up there, up near Arla's head, we have the alternate logo up there. Little LOR. Yeah, that way. There you go. There you go.
It's always opposite. I'm like,
I know. I'm always like, wait. But what else do we have going on? Let's go through our schedule real quick, and then we'll get.
We don't got anything going on. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Well, we obviously are having 2 shows this week because we're trying to accommodate for all of our guests to get in because of their scheduling. So we have Lucy today. Wednesday we have somebody else, but I will not discuss who that is because that's Wednesday.
We'll just say it's Australian week this week.
It might be.
It might be. It is.
So we got that going on. At the end of the month, we've got Mountain West Expo going on. We got Teton Overland Show, the middle of September. We got at the end of the month, Big Iron Overland Rally in West Mineral, Kansas. And then we have, I get hooked up right here.
East,
and then Rendezvous in the Ozarks.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll be doing a lot of cross-country traveling, like a lot. I don't know who came up with this.
I wonder.
Anyway.
Whom has done such a thing?
Yes.
Whom? Hey, Michael, who is in Alaska, living his best freaking life. Jealous of all these pictures he's posting. Ridiculous. Some dude called Feral Joe. Don't know that guy at all.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, Lord. Is he sitting behind you? That's so weird.
He's over in Kentucky.
Yeah. Joanne Teddy Cook. We have guests here in Kentucky. LOL. Nice.
All right. He's with JoJo and Teddy. He's getting a new bumper on tomorrow. Joe is.
What?
Oh, I didn't tell you, girl. He's getting a new bumper, a winch, tires, and rock sliders tomorrow.
Wait, hold on.
Mm-hmm.
Why is the boy getting spoiled and not the girl?
Because the girl already has all the things on my rig. I mean, hello.
Tires too, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're giving out tires, I'll take a set because I need them. You know what I'm saying? I'll take some 37s.
We'll give a little plug for Teddy Cook. Teddy Cook Tire in London, Kentucky. That's where he's getting his tires.
That's where you are, Teddy?
That's where
I have family in London, Kentucky. Lots of it.
Stop it.
We got to talk.
Yeah, talk offline. We got to get into this show.
The view from here, Overland. Good. Girl has Toyota. No, girl has Jeep. You're incorrect. That's me.
That girl has Jeep. This girl's got Toyota. And our guest has legs.
Has legs.
That
She's
was my
got
second.
legs.
So tell us what you are doing, Lucy. What crazy shenanigans are you up to?
Well, I'm an overlander, I guess. I use the apps a lot, but I'm making an attempt to be the first woman to walk from the bottom of Alaska, from the bottom of Argentina to the top of Alaska. So that's a 30,000 kilometer walk, which I originally thought would take 3 years, but I guess you're all used to this. It's definitely blown out beyond well and truly that estimate. It took me 3 years to become the first woman to walk the length of South America.
And that's amazing in and of itself. Like,
whoa.
Yeah, I still say it. Honestly, I look at the map though, and it doesn't really feel, it's such a long distance. It doesn't feel tangible to me. It doesn't feel real. I kind of am just like, did I really though? And yeah, I did. And the beacon tracked me the whole way and everything, but it's just, like long-term travel, I don't think that you really appreciate the distance you've gone because it's just living in the moment. At least it is for me.
Yeah,
Wow.
we're planning our South America trip next year, driving, and we're going to do over 16,000 kilometers, 6 countries, but walking, I can't even I'm tired right now just thinking about that. Like, I don't
took a
even
nap
know.
while y'all were talking.
There's a lot of napping, don't you worry.
Yeah. Arla's like, walking, I'm out. I can't do it.
Who's that? No.
Mm-mm.
No.
So tell us, and you have a travel companion as well, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I do. So I'm actually 4 people every year start this pursuit, right? So I'm not alone in coming up with the idea by any means, but I decided that when I learnt that most people quit before the first year, I decided I'd wait a year before I looked into getting a dog to join me, but that was always the plan. So once I'd reached Santiago in Chile, I began looking, and a farmer ended up giving me one of his puppy cattle dogs. And I actually really wanted to rescue, because that's something you'll really notice here, is that there's so many dogs desperate to be rescued. But they're either seriously injured or they're just a little bit unsound and unpredictable. And I didn't really want to be hiking with a dog where I couldn't be trusting that it'd be okay around children or have unpredictable behavior or triggers. But Wombat, the name of my dog, Wombat has joined me now for almost, I'd say 9,000 kilometers.
Well, that was a question that was coming up. Michael Hayden wants to know, how many miles a day were you going?
How are you at
Doing kilometers
conversion?
here, Michael.
Yeah, I don't know how many miles there are. Is it like 2
Because
something?
he's got the Google, I'm sure.
Yeah, you can Google. Okay, if the temperature is comfortable, I can do up to 40 kilometers a day. My biggest day was 70 kilometers. That was when I was in the desert, walking at night. And that was an arid desert where it's rock bed and flat. There's no hills. So that was, it's not like a mountainous 70 kilometers or anything. At the moment, though, because
24
of
miles a day. I forget. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
24 miles a day.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. And because of the heat right now, I'm doing 30 kilometers a day reliably.
Tell everybody what the weather's like there, where you're at in Nicaragua right now.
Yeah, so it's pretty hot, actually. The kind of heat that makes you feel like you're being cooked. And it's because I'm in the wet season, or it should be the wet season right now, but I guess it's in a build-up because the rain hasn't broken yet the way that it usually would have by now, where there's rain reliably every morning and evening. And so the temperature is reading at about 85 degrees Fahrenheit. I looked this up before, that's why I'm thinking about it, because again, I operate in degrees Celsius. But the feel is 115. So it's really hard. And again, there's during the day when I finished walking, I usually try and find a restaurant or somewhere where I can sit and get some shade. But here, the roofs are tin roofs and there isn't insulation. So sometimes it's better to find a tree and some breeze, but often it's really difficult to find.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's hard.
Tin
It's really
roofs are
hard.
No bueno.
Yeah, and I spend a lot of my time paranoid about my dog as well because I really want to make sure that he's in good health.
Yeah.
So I stop and touch the road if we're walking on the road a lot to make sure that it's not hot. But ultimately, as soon as it gets past the 30-degree point, he'll stop walking, and that's the end of our day because he just refuses to walk when he's uncomfortable, which is good because it means that he doesn't get paw injury or he doesn't suffer from heat stroke, and he's never had anything like that happen before. The worst thing that's happened to him is that he was bitten by another dog, and even that was superficial.
And how old is he?
He's now 5.
5.
Oh, wait, we got to show a picture real quick.
Yeah, get a picture. I'm so adorable.
Oh,
Look there, sitting in mommy's lap.
so cute.
German Shepherd, right?
No, he's an Australian cattle dog.
Okay.
Or we call them blue heelers colloquially at home if they're that color.
Yep.
And actually, that photo is from Peru. It's 5,000 meters above sea level. And one thing that really struck me about him is that he isn't affected by altitude, whereas at that altitude, I'm doing about 2 kilometers an hour.
You're like, oh my God. Yeah.
Where's the air? There's so much air, but I can't breathe. It's like that.
Meanwhile, Wombat's like, are you coming or what? Let's go.
Oh, he was really patient, actually. He'd run ahead and then he'd just lie down and wait for me. And then he'd run ahead and do it again. It was really sweet, actually. And the thing about Peru is it's just such a beautiful country that the kilometers pass by without really me noticing too much. And I had just arrived from the desert. So I'd gone from somewhere where it's really arid and there aren't any bird calls or much sound of life. And then I'd risen into these beautiful mountains where the air is cool and crisp, and suddenly I could hear the sound of trickling water, which was just such a soul cleansing experience for me because I could drop the fear of running out of water. And it's beautiful hiking. I didn't realize that the Incan trails run all the way along the length of the country, and so for the entire course, that took me 6 months to get through Peru. And for the entire time, I was more or less on trail in remote communities. It was beautiful.
Wow. That's crazy. I still like trying to wrap my head around the walking that far thing, especially, I mean, we think, oh yeah, we're tough because we're driving in a vehicle and camping in a tent, in all kinds of weather conditions, but walking every day, like,
Yeah,
I don't know. That's
I've spoken
that's
to
hardcore, girl.
cyclists. Yeah, I love it. I mean, if you like
Yeah.
hiking, it's a hiker's dream, except of course you're missing out on mod cons and it's hard to replace equipment when it breaks. But I think the general consensus, I mean, I don't have to deal with the mechanical issues that people have to deal with in bikes or in vehicles. But certainly the most challenging aspect that I have that other people don't is that if I come into a serious problem, it isn't as easy for me to get away. Or to solve the issue, or there's not always a quick fix immediately, and I've just had to be good at adapting. But I mean, again, that's something that's true for any traveler.
Have you had any situations where you felt unsafe or kind of concerned? You probably had a few, so you want to tell us about one or two of those?
Yeah, typically I feel safe, especially if I'm in remote areas. The only thing that I really need to worry about in that setting is that it could get, there could be an animal, like a wildlife issue. So, for example, crossing through Panama, I saw 2 snakes at least every day, and they were close and venomous. But mostly the issues that I am most concerned about is human interference. And, we're all living in patriarchal cultures, but here more than ever, I think it's more notable for me on a day-to-day life with catcalling and whatnot. And so I do have this underlying level of readiness for there to be an issue. And I guess that carries stress with me. And so every day I'm like ignoring men, and I've got the blinkers on, and I'm constantly looking for women and making sure that I'm aligned with them. But I have had an occasion or two occasions where men have kind of accosted me while I'm approaching a town. And that is always the most unsafe area, is on the fringe of cities or towns. But in both scenarios, I was on the road. So these two men tried to make me get into the car with them, and I didn't want to, obviously. And so I just stopped traffic in both directions, and I said, I'm not moving until someone sorts these men out. They're harassing me. And that was in Chile, actually. And I know that the culture there is really fast paced, so people really don't like it when they're interrupted. And so as soon as the traffic was stopped, I knew that someone would solve the problem, because they would be so infuriated that their day had been delayed. And ever since, I've just relied on that, because it's a good strategy.
That was very good thinking. Wow.
Yeah, and I carry pepper spray, but to be honest, I feel like sometimes the best thing is just to stay really calm and listen and really hear what they want. Because sometimes, like for example, if someone wants to rob me, it's safer for me just to give them the money, and to not be so entitled to it. Yes, of course, it's my money, and no, they shouldn't be taking it, but also it's much better than having an injury or being harmed, to be prepared to separate from my items if necessary. There's always a solution. I can always crowdfund to replace my equipment if I need to.
Wow.
It's getting really dark. I'm going to keep talking to you while turning on the light.
Oh. Do you I was just thinking, I was wondering how much she carries, like weight wise.
What her pack is and a weight of
like the pack, like backpack or whatever,
Yeah, you're light.
So when I first started, my pack actually weighed 30 kilos. And that was because it was winter in Argentina, in Patagonia, and there's a lot of wind. So I had like a 2-kilo tent that was bomb proof for 120 kilometer per hour winds down there. And also, I was really inexperienced hiker. I've learned a lot about hiking actually from people who hike in the United States, because you all have a really amazing through hiking culture up there. And so even now, people are teaching me stuff, and I'm so grateful and frustrated all at once, because I'm like, why did I start in the South? If I'd started in Alaska, I would have learned all this stuff going through the United States, and my life would be so much easier. But anyway, back
That's
then,
not necessarily true.
well, it's true, but actually, people really share their information. Like, it seems to me, I haven't experienced it yet, but it seems to me like there's a really beautiful culture, hiking culture in the States.
Mm-hmm. There is a
You
very,
can ask
very
me about that later. But yeah, so I've gone from having this pack that weighed 30 kilos, and back then I was especially petite. I'd put on weight to try and have reserve and do what is appropriate for safety in isolated areas. But I'd lost a bunch of weight by that stage as well, like early in. So I was weighing about 60 kilos with a 30-kilo pack, which is just a bit silly. I was really strong, but it's still not great for long-term health. And now my pack weighs about 10 kilos, and this is before food and water.
So how much water do you normally try to carry with you, and how many days do you try to go between water fills?
Well, right now I'm seeing water every day. So I carry 3 liters with me that feeds myself and Wombat. And I know that I'll be able to refill. Actually, that's one thing that's really easy about being in Central America, is that I can just buy food and water every day.
Yeah.
But and again, in all of the countries where I've been, there's always been river sources where I can take water safely or clean it daily, multiple times a day even, and not really have to worry about carrying multiple days. The only place where I did carry a lot of water was in Patagonia, and again, it was just inexperience. I could have I had a lot of trouble getting fuel for my stove, but I could have melted water every day if I'd been more experienced. But again, it's been a learning activity. Hiking here is definitely different to what I've experienced back home. And
Mhm.
this constant second guessing myself because I'm alone and I don't have someone to confer with about whatever challenges I'm facing.
Yeah, my husband is big into hiking and he wants to do a few through hikes and he watches videos and he's in forums and he's like always gathering information. Like he
And then,
I'm, not that big of a fan of through hiking. He is. So maybe one day he'll do that. I don't
Mhm.
know if he'll make me go with him, but he might, and so pray for
you
me.
could
Um
support, which would
I
be
can
Yeah.
support.
you'd be so
I'll be his
popular.
trail angel.
You
Yeah.
yeah, and
I'll
people
just
would
help him.
love you. Honestly,
Yeah.
if you just if you wanted to be the most popular person on trail, that's one way of doing it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, for me, I love hiking, especially in beautiful areas. There's been areas where it's dank. I mean, getting out of Panama and getting onto there's a through trail of Panama that I had to get to, but to get from where I was because I'd done a different entry to getting in, and so to get onto it out of the city, I had to hike through areas where I had to walk through
Mhm.
sewage water. I mean, sometimes it's disgusting, but for me, I'm just like, whatever. Like, I'm just so used to having to do gross stuff. Um, but for the most part, it's beautiful. It's just tiring. I think trying to speak in a foreign language when my skills aren't that great still is also very difficult. And being a woman on my own, here it's been better because all of the women here seem to ignore the men, and so they're kind of used to it, and they're also very disgusted that I'm so dirty and I stink. So I haven't been getting harassed nearly as much, and I'm like, man, if it's going to be like this all the way to this day, it's awesome.
Be like, I'm a people repellent. I do this for
Really, and it is. I do. I smell terrible, like, but there's nothing I can do about it. It's just part of it.
yeah.
Golly.
Don't
Let's
show
see.
that
Oh,
person. Yeah. I don't know
Teddy.
what's going on there, but
Teddy and Joanne say tent camping or cowboy camping.
Yeah, so cowboy camping is when you camp without your tent and you just have a view of the stars. For me, I would never do that when I'm on my own because, oh, that's not true. I did do it in the Atacama Desert, but there I knew there was no one was going to come across me. So there's a few things that I need to worry about. One is human interference. The second is I have a dog and I want to keep him contained and stop him from running off after wild animals. So he sleeps in the tent with me. And also in the areas where I've been most recently, there's also problems with malaria. And like just 2 days ago, I had my tent set up. And by the time I got into my tent, the vegetables were full of spiders. And so,
Oh, no, 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 no.
yeah, yeah.
No, no,
I
no, no, no.
mean, spiders don't bother me so much, but I don't want to share my sleeping bag with them, if you know what I mean. Like,
no.
No. Y'all can have that. I'm just going to keep walking. I'm not about that spider life.
Mm-mm.
And no.
I don't feel like I'm converting either of you into the idea of hiking.
Freaking me out, man.
So I do shorter hikes. I don't mind doing short
Yeah,
hikes.
yeah.
I don't mind
Okay.
camping. I don't know about through hiking and just
I
having
don't
my
know
back.
about
I
a
have a really
spider
bad back anyway.
infestation in my tent.
And she's got spider phobias and all the phobias, so she's not about that life.
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I
No.
get it. And also, I mean, isn't it strange that we compare our different passions in a way that could be positive or negative when it's like, if you really love camping and you love going on short hikes, then that's awesome. And I like, we should celebrate that more rather than, I just feel like with social media and this constant comparison of what other people are doing, I really like, I think it's great
I'm
that we can have
I'm more in
different.
awe of you for your ability to do
Yeah,
that
you're
daily.
tough.
Like that is just the stamina and the physical strength and the mental strength that takes,
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, it's
girl.
been
And
hard.
like you said, you're completely open to whatever environment and anything, you know, anything can harm you potentially. And, even, with overlanding, we're at least in a vehicle, not that people can't carjack a vehicle or all that thing, but you're a lot more, to me, you're a lot more exposed. And
Yeah, and I suffer sleep deprivation because of it too. I mean, at the
yeah,
moment, it's more that I have to get up at 1:30 in the morning and I have to be walking by 3 a.m. because otherwise I won't get very far before 10 or 11 before the heat is just too stifling.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I am. With Wombat, I sleep better, but I'm also always listening and I'm worried. Like I have to make sure that I'm safe. So there's that, and I guess I've learned as well that it does get to a point where it's overbearing. And so in that scenario, I know now that it's because I'm tired and I just need to take a week or two off and recover. And then I'm okay again. And the other thing that I have in my toolkit is I try and keep a gratitude journal. And I know that that sounds really like airy fairy and in the clouds and whatever. But I thought I'd just give it a go to see if it helps shift my like level of mental health and where I just rested in terms of happiness. And it really did help. And it's nice to have a journal like that because I can look back and remember the days as they pass and be like, oh yeah, that was a really awesome time.
Yeah, definitely. I like the journal idea, and especially if you are feeling a little down and like frustrated and just kind of, drained, you can go back and say, okay, I remember why I'm doing this, and read about some good
Hmm.
experiences you've had. So,
Yeah, I know when I don't do it that I just am resting on this rage because I am just focused on constantly defending myself and like being ready to battle. So
yeah.
it's definitely something that's been good for me to do.
Awesome. Got a great question here from Feral Joe. And I know we talked about this a little bit before the show started, which was very interesting. Is it challenging to bring wombat across borders? There's some places that require health and certificates and whatnot, and quarantining. Have you ran into a lot of issues with that?
Yeah, every single border crossing I've had to do a health certificate, and that's so let's just starting from Argentina and heading north. It was used to just be a health certificate, and then I had now, and I don't know if all of the countries have introduced this, but you don't just need a health certificate. You need to get the health certificate certified by a government entity to say that the vet is a true vet, and so you then have to go and find that wing of the government, and then it usually comes with a ridiculous fee. So it used to cost me $10 to get him across the border, and now it costs me a couple of hundred. And that,
Ooh.
yeah, yeah, and it's there, and it's all a new processes. And then what we were just talking about before is that the reason they do this is to ensure that they can contain infectious illnesses. And so what's just happened is I've arrived into Nicaragua 3 days before it closed its border to import of animals from Costa Rica because they've had a
Mhm.
case of screwworm. And so now anyone that has animals in Costa Rica can't leave because there's just been a blanket ban and it's not important. It's something that's so contagious that you can't really get a health certificate and be like, I can assure you that my dog doesn't have screwworm because it could have picked it up on the way into to the border. So yeah, that comes with the real risks. In that situation, I think if I got, if I had still been in Costa Rica, I would have waited until I had time and I can extend it. So I could have waited to see how long it would have taken before my visa ran out to see if they then opened the borders again. And if not, I would have to find someone. And I already had met some people that would have looked after him and I would have continued without him until I could go and pick him up again.
Yeah, that's
Awesome.
we were just talking about that, how some people are stuck in Costa Rica because of that or trying to figure out ways to get their animals out and they still travel on and yeah,
Yeah.
but nobody wants to screw around with the screwworm. That I just looked those up and those things are mm-mm.
I don't want to look it up. I don't even like the word.
Don't. They're
I'll just say
gross.
flesh eating and no thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Okay. Joe has another question.
okay.
What do you use to filter your water, and how much for you and Wombat? I think you said 3 liters you carry a day right now for you and Wombat.
I I do, and the upper level of intake for a dog of Wombat's weight, so he weighs 25 kilos, which means that on the upper end he would drink 1.7 liters a day.
Mm.
I My superpower is that I don't have to drink, I don't get thirsty, so I can live on 700 mils of water a day without really feeling it. But of course, I try and take in as much liquid as I can. because heat stroke is, would be disastrous.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I tend to have a 3 liter bladder at the beginning of the day, and I notice that I usually have about a liter of that left over by the end of the day, but I just top it all up. And then, okay, so I actually am carrying 2 forms of water purification, which traditionally for hikers is overkill, but I have to clean water here from viruses, not just bacteria. So you can use a filter, and I have a Sawyer filter. I just put it on top of a bottle and I drink straight out of it or squeeze it out, and Wombat can drink from it too. And that works well if the water is muddy and dirty, but it doesn't kill viruses, and viruses can get through the filter. So for that, I also have a UV light, and it's a really old Camelback. I don't even know if they make them anymore. Light that fits on top of a Nalgene bottle, and it's really fast too. So here I can fill water up from the taps, which you can't normally drink, and then I just put the lid on, zap it for a minute, and then put it into the Camelback, and then do it again 2 more times to get 3 liters.
Wow.
That's interesting.
That's
Got
very
people
cool.
chiming in like crazy now about questions.
Okay.
Got Gloria on
Okay.
here. Hey, Gloria.
Gloria.
She said, maybe I missed it. What do you do when you have a medical issue, whether it's an emergency or a simple medical problem? That's a great question also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So the most important thing is that I carry a Garmin InReach, which has an SOS button on it. So and I've had a friend have this happen where he was cycling in Peru and he misjudged something, fell off a cliff and fell a fair way, broke his shoulder bone, I think. Anyway, he's in a really remote part of Peru, and he pressed the SOS button, and it was the afternoon, and they were able to get to him first thing in the morning. So that's what I would do in that kind of health situation. Otherwise, I used to be pretty lenient about food and eating things that are beyond what they should be in terms of expiry, and I don't do that so much anymore because I have been food poisoned a lot, or water poisoned. It's just really unpleasant when you're on your own and you're sick. And yeah, I got food poison, and then I had an influx of amoebas. So then I had that issue to deal with, and things just cascaded. So in that scenario, I've done wilderness first aid, and I know that I've just got to keep my water up as much as possible while I can. But I also had a funny feeling in my feet, and so I was like, no, I'm going to go back I have traveled back into the city of Quito in Ecuador and went and visited a doctor because in the end I needed 3 courses of antibiotics, one for the food poisoning. Apparently I thought that would just pass, but I think they just sort of threw them at me. And then I needed another one to kill the amoebas because I went back 2 days later and they had sort of swelled in the environment. And I had like a really bloated belly. It looked like I was pregnant actually. And then I went back again to the doctor, and I'm like, I've just got this funny feeling with my feet. And he was like, show me your feet. And I went to undo my shoelace, and he was just like, stop. I don't need to see them. You've got foot rot. And then
Yeah, foot rot.
Yeah. So in that situation, again, I take time off. I make sure that I get medical assistance. But I also have a good friend of mine who is a infectious disease doctor. But of course, he also has a good understanding of general medicine as well. And I have him listed in my beacon. So I can send him short messages and say what's wrong. And then he's advised me. I personally think it's a bit of overkill, but I have 5 different types of antibiotics in my first aid kit, which the only reason I'm like, is because it's weight, right? But at least if something happens, I have that. And then I also carry antidiarrheals always because it's good to I've had it before where I've had maybe 3 days before I've been able to get to town, and it's just been really awful and unpleasant. And I carry ondansetron, which is an anti-vomiting drug, which is very effective as well. And the good thing about that actually is I can also use it for Wombat when he's a bit unwell. So anything that I can use both ways is good to have. And he has a first aid kit too. And on my beacon, I also have a vet.
That's not good. I'm ready to ask you, does he have his own first aid kit?
We got an infectious disease doctor and a vet on speed dial. Got it.
Yeah, I do. And I learned so much, honestly. Like I know how to detect heat stroke now as well, and I've had video consults because I just am really paranoid about his health because I know that sometimes I'm far out of town. So if I'm ever worried, the first thing I do is I get on to my phone with Dr. Farley and we go through all those checks.
That's awesome. That's a really good idea, though. Especially, so where is Dr. Farley located?
In
Physically?
Australia,
Okay.
yeah. And then she also consults with a endurance dog expert who kind of chuckles at us because I only know what I know and question things from comments that people make on social media, which sometimes often are really misinformed. And I used to get a lot of grief from people about dogs not meant to be endurance animals and they shouldn't walk long distance, which of course, most people would disagree with that. But then I thought, okay, at least I should be considering his nutrition because I need to be well supported and I'm not always, my diet's pretty terrible. I just eat what I can get. But I should be trying harder for him because he's under my care. And so I spoke to her and she spoke to her contact. And the guy, he's been really helpful, but he also chuckled because he was like, he's walking 30 to 40 Ks a day. That's not an endurance dog. That's a dog outdoors enjoying nature.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's good though, because at least these people are all contributing to make sure that we are in the best state of fitness to perform well.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Arla, I think Diamond needs to step up her game.
Please.
That's one of Arla's dogs.
Oh, Lord. I'll take a chug of Mountain Dew on that note.
Yeah. Diamond would rather you carry her, but then don't touch her otherwise.
Yes.
Oh, truly?
Yeah.
She's not a loving dog. She's like
Wombat definitely has a luxury side of life. I mean, yeah, if there's a bed, he wants to be on it. If there's a possibility of taking a day off, he will. And when he's bored, he'll just there's this thing that he does where he pulls his bowl out of my backpack when we're at a restaurant and he'll throw it at the person that cooks because he knows that they'll think he's starving and they'll fill his bowl up with food every time. It works. And what he used to do when he was and when he was younger and didn't have access to the bowl, he used to just pretend to faint outside of restaurants. And people used to think that I was a monster when really he'd be like this, and then he'd open his eye and be like, are they looking? He's really smart.
Wow, he sure is.
Yeah.
It's like having a teenager.
Yeah. Yeah,
we know that. Wow.
But it's fun too, right? Like it really helps the day go by. It's nice to have a buddy and someone to talk to per se. Yeah. And it's good for my security because I tell everyone that he's really dangerous, which he's really not. But, he looks it.
Oh, yeah. Here we go. Joe wants to know, what is Wombat's favorite meal?
Oh.
Anything.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because he won't eat raw meat or skin. So he really likes pasta with, I hide veggies in the pasta, but then with tuna, that's something that he's really keen on. Recently, I had some Anzac biscuits sent from home and he was just desperate for them all the time because he knew that they were delicious. And then there are some treats that I bought here actually that are made from rabbit, which I use for training. And they're tiny and he will do anything. Like he'll try and do all the treats at once. It's almost too high a value treat because he just can't focus when they're around.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's funny. So you better not run out of those, just FYI.
No. Well,
he might turn on you.
It's like eating chocolate.
He's like, I'm out. You lost the rabbit treats, I'm out. Walk
totally.
Don't run out of snacks, lady.
Yeah. Arla's the same way. If I run out of snacks, forget it. She's out. Mm-mm.
Oh, wow.
Mm-mm.
Standoff.
You better have chocolate or some good snack.
Yeah.
You better.
Yeah, right. I mean, he's actually, I don't normally have treats for him because we've just always shared the food that I eat. And now I carry a special powder that's like a supplement that really helps support his diet. Yeah, no, he's kind of breed that even if I didn't bribe him, they're really loyal and normally just to one person. So he'll always follow, and he will often, someone will try and get him to do a trick and he won't. He'll just pretend that he doesn't understand them.
So he'll follow you anywhere, but he's going to be a pain in the butt the whole time.
Oh yeah, that's pretty much it. Yep. Every time I lift my backpack up, he's got some really strong instincts, so he'll bark, which is kind of a problem actually when I'm trying to be somewhere
Quiet,
without being
stealth.
noticed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Down low.
Yeah, but it's just an instinct because they're a working dog and they're used to biting the heels of cattle. And so, yeah, as soon as I lift up the backpack, he knows it's work time and he'll try and bite at my feet and carry on for 5 minutes. Or if I put him on the lead and make him walk with me on the lead, he'll stop so that I let him off.
Now, what if you encounter any cattle or animals like that? Does he try to instinctually go after them, or do you have to kind of watch that? Or
Yeah, I usually notice first, and in that instance, I'll say leave it, and he does. If I don't notice and he takes off, it's like getting him to come back is impossible. So I always just try and get to him instead because I don't want to teach him not to come when I call. There was one time when that happened really at altitude in Peru where he saw a pack of llamas and he took after them. And I saw him running down this huge hill and then up another one. And I was like, there goes my dog. Because as I was saying before, I could only do 2 kilometers an hour at that altitude, so I couldn't chase after him. And it was at the end of the day, and I was just wiped out. And, you know, when you're at altitude, when you sleep, that's when your body has time to catch up on oxygen again. And it takes a minimum of 2 weeks to really get into at least a decent state of living in terms of breathing. So I just was like, if he doesn't come back, that's the end of me having a dog. But he did. He came back. And again, it was like nothing, no big deal. So yeah, he definitely has that drive to chase after animals, but he also is really good at listening and following command.
it's a good thing he comes back because we're not going after him. That's crazy. You're walking enough as it is. He needs to get it together and stay with you already.
Yeah, I actually wish that he had his own, like, you know, how you can measure the steps that you do. It would be awesome if he had one for himself so that I could see how far he has walked, because he's probably done twice the distance that I have.
Well, yeah, because he's running after over here and running over.
Yeah,
that's right.
Wow. That's amazing. So what do you think is your plan for like heavy winter months? I know you started down in Patagonia and there was a lot of snow, and are you going to be reloading your pack again, or do you have somebody dropping that stuff off for you, or how do you have that worked out?
Yeah, that'll be really interesting. And I'm looking forward to it actually, because hiking in the cold is my favorite. But I've never hiked in places like Alaska. So I will build my pack back up again, but I suspect that I'll end up for the final leg pulling a sled or something along those lines. When I was in the desert where it was really remote and there was no resupply, I had a hiking trailer, which is like a kind of like a wheelbarrow but narrower, and it's just a rack that you put a bag on top of. Okay. And so as soon as I could get rid of it, though, I got rid of it because I'd rather be in a backpack in the mountains rather than on roads. Or, I mean, it's a really versatile trailer, so it can actually, I took it through some of the Incan trails before I could send it back home. But that's all still to be worked out. I mean, I have to walk every part of it, so I'll be snowshoeing. I did meet some people in the desert who have dogs up in Alaska, and they were like, we can hook you up and help you out. And that would be really cool too, to pull equipment. But again, it's so hard for me to consider what I'm going to be doing beyond the country that I'm in, because I'm always just so heavily loaded with logistics as it is. It's usually better just to work it out once I'm there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's probably kind of overwhelming and daunting if you start trying to think too far ahead as well. You've got to stay focused on
Exactly.
where you are in the moment and what your next step is, literally.
Yeah.
Because
Do you find that when you're overlanding as well?
yeah, at
Mm.
times. We used to before we started overlanding, we RV'd full time. And one of the things that stressed me out about that was because it's such a popular thing for people to do,
Mm-hmm.
you had to book things way in advance and really
Yes.
plan out your trip along the way for months, several months out, because we were full time. And
Mm-hmm.
so, you're like, okay, well, we've got this week filled, but we've got a gap between here and here that we don't have somewhere to stay. And you've got to try to figure it's a lot of logistics and a lot of forward planning. So
And
that's,
really could cause a
yeah,
lot of disappointment if you end up being somewhere where you want to stay for longer, right? Or do you just
right.
then sacrifice the booking?
I mean, sometimes you can be flexible, but on high season, like if you're down in Florida or in Arizona during the winter months, things are booked for 11
Wow.
months out. So
Yes.
that to me got too overwhelming and too stressful.
Holidays are always booked out a year in advance. Like if you're there Memorial Day weekend, the people that are there are already booking their next year slot while they're there, so they
Yeah.
can make sure they get a spot.
Oh, I'm glad to hear this because I imagine that even though I'm hiking, that's something that will cause me issues occasionally. It's good to have your expectations.
Yeah, not to stress you out because you're way, that's way down the
Yeah.
Yeah,
road. Focus on
yeah.
Nicaragua. But yeah, I would like you to actually, since we're talking about logistics, tell everybody what you had to do in Costa Rica. What you just told us about having to be in the capital and then get to the border in a certain amount of time.
Yeah, so
Very
this comes
interesting.
back to getting Wombat's paperwork again. So in Costa Rica, San Jose is the capital and it's in the middle of the country. So I'd hiked in and I decided to go and visit a vet and get his health certificate early, or at least find out how long they last for. And they told me that I can actually only apply for the certificate that certifies the vet in San Jose. So I decided to do it all there.
Wow.
And so I had the consult done to show that he was healthy. And then the vet went into SENASA, which is their government arm, to get it validated. And then he rang me and said, okay, so I have to change the date on the form because you can only do this 10 days in advance. And you have to tell them the exact day that you're leaving. And so I just took the date, the last possible date that I could take. And because we'd already put in one of the borders on the form, I had to leave through that border crossing as well, because there was actually one that would have been closer. But nonetheless, it meant that I had to do a minimum of 33 kilometers a day each day in really difficult terrain, where I was hiking up very, very steep slopes. And I also needed to get somewhere at the halfway point to change my shoes over. So it meant that I had to kind of really change that route and then head back again, which was pretty difficult too, because these people had done a favor for me by storing my shoes for so long that they asked me to stay there the night and hang out with them, when really I'd just gotten 15 kilometers ahead of my schedule. And if
Yeah.
I'd stopped there, it meant that I would have lost that advantage, which is what ended up happening, because I can't very well expect someone to store my shoes for me and then be like, thanks, and then leave and not accept their hosting invitation. And then by the time I got to the border, I crossed through fairly easily. And I went to the vet at the next town, which was 2 days away, because Wombat had been itchy on his back and was losing hair. So while I was at the vet getting that checked out, they asked me when I'd arrived, because the day before the borders had been closed to importing pets and other animals, because they've got a case of screwworm in Costa Rica. So yeah, had I arrived late and had to go back to Costa Rica and redo the paperwork, I'd still be there, because
Yep, they closed.
yeah, they're closed. And it must be
Wow.
terrible. There must be travelers there now that are stuck because they don't want to leave their pets behind.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. I would be
There's
there. I would just stay.
Mhm.
I would.
there's
Yeah,
a lot of people.
I had to leave Wombat when the pandemic struck. I was in Colombia and I had to leave him to go back to Australia, but I also couldn't stay in Colombia because I didn't have a visa or residency, of course.
Oh.
And I think that the most stressful thing about having to leave your pet in one of these countries is that we have culturally different expectations on the care of animals, and so it's quite okay and acceptable for dogs to be left on the street. And a lot of them have broken legs and whatnot. And for me, I understand how traumatic that is, because it's so hard to trust people, especially because people aren't always honest, and they'll just be like, yeah, it'll be fine, don't worry, when what they're really trying to say is, no, I'm not going to keep your dog locked up or like safe. I'm just going to, like, I have my own thing that I need to do. So if your dog's on the street, it's on the street, but I'll feed it, like, yeah. And so that for me would be a nightmare situation. You'd really need to find someone who you really knew would be okay with looking after it for a period of time.
Yes. And doggies are very important to us here at Lady Overlander Radio.
Yes. So Joe's asking, do you cold soak your food, or do you have a cooking stove?
I haven't actually considered cold soaking and eating food cold. I don't even know why, because it's such an obvious, easy go-to. I used to have a stove. I don't have one now. And I have cold soaked in the past to conserve gas, and then I've heated the food up with my stove and eaten it. But I've never like cold soaked and then eaten. And here I don't do it because, as I was saying before, there's just so many. Central America is really highly populated, and I'm passing through several towns every day. So I kind of just eat as I go through, and I don't even really have to wait for restaurants to open or anything like that, because there's street food, and it's usually cheaper than me buying food and making
Preparing.
it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's delicious, and it's fast, and I can just sit down and undo my shoelaces and let the blood rush back into my feet. So right now I'm kind of eating, maybe sometimes I'll take cereal and a box of milk in the afternoon from a shop, and I won't have to walk very far before camp, and then I'll consume that in the morning. And Wombat loves having like a bready, milky breakfast. He's got a good gut for milk and dairy products, doesn't really bother him so much. And then for lunch, or for second breakfast, actually, because I'm starting walking so early, I usually find someone who will make eggs and tortillas for me. And I say will do that for me because it's usually someone in a shop who doesn't typically offer cooked food, but I'll go up and I'll be like, do you have coffee that's prepared that I can buy so that I can drink it? And then they'll say, oh, well, if you buy it, yes, I guess. And then I'll say, do you have eggs that you could cook for me?
Make, and I will eat them.
And if they don't want to do it, I'm totally like, okay, that's all right. Can I have X, Y, and Z? And I'll just eat what's available and rest my feet. But like 99% of the time, even if that happens, they'll end up bringing food out for me to eat. It's really nice. And I always pay, like, they often are like, don't worry about it. It's a gift. And I'm like, no, I can pay for this, and I want to show you that I really appreciate it. And sometimes, even like people will host me and do something nice, like, extra nice. And for that, I actually have a few, not very many now, but a few little koalas from Australia that like pinch onto things and hold on to. So I keep those in Wombat's backpack, and I will give that to them as an extra thank you that someone's really gone above and beyond for me. And they love it. Like, it's really precious to them. And then in the lunchtime, I'll eat something like, here they have pinto beans, which I'm kind of getting really sick of, but it's rice and beans, and you just get that with everything, and then you can get a cooked bit of meat with it. So that's kind of what my diet looks like. And Wombat eats half of everything, more or less.
It's a good thing he likes to share.
It's a good thing I like to share.
Yeah.
Feels right around.
Yeah. Aw. So what, not to look too far ahead again, but what planned route are you considering for the United States portion?
Okay. The thing with this is the dog-friendly parks. And I really would like to do the Pacific Crest Trail, which runs along the west coast.
Mm-hmm.
I live on the east coast of Australia, so for me it's always really hard to work that out for some reason. Anyway, that's world class. Like, I would love to do that, but it would mean leaving Wombat behind, and the logistics of finding him and getting him again, I just think would be a nightmare. So I think that ultimately I'm going to end up having to do the Continental Divide Trail, even though I'm really sick of walking through deserts and dry places, because I think that I'm more happy when he's with me. I may change my mind by the time I get there, though.
Oh, we've hiked portions of the CDT, and it is pretty.
Yeah,
I
great.
mean, yeah, there's some really cool
Yeah,
areas.
I mean, ultimately, too, it depends where I pop out from Mexico as well. So,
Yeah.
I mean, no matter what, even if I do the PCT, I'm still going to have to traverse my way over there. And I'm not going to, I think, knowing me, it's very unlikely that I'm going to do like a direct line. I would definitely try and find the shortest way across in terms of like a horizontal line. Horizontal. Yeah.
Or diagonal, maybe. I don't know.
Whatever it
One of
is.
those directions. Yeah. So we don't have to walk so far. That's what we're looking for. We're walking far
Yeah,
enough. Yes.
yeah, exactly. And so there's a lot of things in the United States that really excite me that I'm really looking forward to, especially like freeze-dried food, like complete meals that I can eat that taste
Oh, they're
like
good.
something more than just bread, which is my common go-to. And now, like often I sometimes lose a lot of weight because I just am too bored with eating. So I'm really, really, really looking forward to the variety. And I know, like I also watched lots of those YouTube videos that you were talking about before because they are very compelling, and it's nice to see what's going to be available for me in the future. And I've heard about these big halls where there's food and you can get like salads and like all of your cravings can be met. Whereas here, like salads are very uncommon, and just getting vegetables in your diet isn't, for me, it's been really difficult. So I'm really excited for it.
You will love it.
Yeah.
You will
They
love
also
it.
have freeze-dried candy, just saying. I mean, if you're into that thing.
Really?
Candy
Oh, yeah.
girl. Yes,
Oh,
this is a
yes.
new thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, if anyone's traveling in my direction and they want to bring some of that stuff for me to try, I will not say no.
Let us know where you're at. We will hunt you
Yeah.
down.
Freeze-dried Skittles,
I mean, I
freeze-dried
won't walk to
candy.
you per se, but I will meet you somewhere where I can
She
get out
will
of my
ship it or
vehicle and
drive.
say, "Hey, girl, hey," and here's just the snacks.
It would honestly, I would cry. I would absolutely be a
We would do
mess.
it.
And
Oh, yeah.
then I'd be like indecision fatigue because I wouldn't know what to eat first. But I have had people come and find me who have said, hey, we're traveling to Guatemala, for example. What would you like? We would love to come on an adventure and try and track you down with all your equipment. And then I've been in remote places, not even in town, where people have been, I've seen like this big yellow truck turn up, or this guy on a motorbike came and found me once with a whole new kit for me, which was just like Christmas.
That's
Um,
awesome.
Aw.
yeah, yeah. Like I haven't, I know that there's lots of trail angels in the United States, but I have definitely had my fair share, and it's just made the trip for me because just shoes, like my shoes, the ones that I'm in now last 1,000 kilometers, which is about 6 weeks. So it's,
Wow.
yeah, just being able to get new shoes is a big deal for me. And yet always somewhat, like yeah, there's been several times where I had to cinch my shoes on to my feet to stop them from falling apart. But I've always managed to get new shoes before it's become catastrophic.
What would you say your
Wow.
favorite kind of shoe is to, hike in or?
If the train's easy, like if there's no mud that's going to pull my shoe off, I wear Hockers, which is a trail running shoe with a big
Mhm.
foam pad on the bottom.
Yep.
I actually prefer the neutral shoe that they have. It's a Bondi because it has the most softness in it. And I'm never running, so I don't need to be
Neither.
fast in them. But I can walk fast enough. But because that shoe isn't reinforced like the one that I have right now, which is the something 6 GTX or something. I don't even know. Challenger. I've got the Challenger. It lasts for 1,000 kilometers, and I would much prefer to have the Hoka, but I also know that I really hate it when the shoe falls off my feet. So I have a bit more foot pain for the sake of having a shoe.
Absolutely.
Gloria's in on hunting you down while you're over here and getting
Yes.
you and Wombat some treats.
You
I was
can
actually going to say
actually.
that.
Well, the reason people have been able to do this is because I have a live tracking map where people can see where I am. But it's off at the moment because I have some sensitive information with mapping on how I crossed into Panama. that we just need to have removed off the map before I can have it public again. Because now I get a lot of emails from people. Like I had one just the other day from a guy that's using a motorbike to cross to Colombia. I'll just do a quick background so if people don't understand. The Pan American Highway goes all the way from the United States all the way down to Argentina, but there is a 50-mile gap between Panama and Colombia because there's a national park there. And it's also a very narrow area where a lot of trafficking of illicit substances goes through, and so it's not safe. And you just don't go there. You're not allowed to go there. There's a sanction by the government. It's, you know, the last thing they need is for a small police force to then have to go searching for people that have gone missing because they wanted to go in anyway. I got supported by them to go through because I'm doing a world first, and I'm really grateful for it. And a part of that responsibility is making sure that people who write to me who think it's a conspiracy, that, you know, there really is a road there or whatever. I get a lot of emails now in that kind of manner, and they want the map. They want me to show them how they can go through. And of course, this person in particular with a motorbike, it's raining there right now. They can't get through no matter what because there's flash flooding, and they would most likely be robbed and have their motorbike stolen anyway because of the cartels that operate in that area. Anyway, once that's cleaned out, people again will be able to find me, and I've been really missing being able to have people come and visit me. So that's another job this week that's getting sorted.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of the overlanders ship their vehicle across the Darien Gap down to Colombia from Panama.
Yeah. I met the people that do that. They're the nicest family. Honestly, I think that's a highlight for many people, just getting to that point in Panama, because it's another logistic, but there's lots of people to help make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And you definitely want to be safe. So just because, don't do what she does, just find a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's so much to see. And actually, if you're interested in the Darien National Park, there are tour operators that operate in there, just not inside the hotspots. And that's really worthwhile doing because they have endangered species. I spent some time with the Gunayala people, who are the indigenous group that live along the Caribbean coastline. And there are leatherback turtles there. So I got to see a bunch of turtles laying and help a science group with their research. It was just such a special, special opportunity. I'll remember that for the rest of my life. It was incredible. Right. And they write to me all the time. They're like, when are you coming back? And I'm like, well, if I start walking now.
It'll be 10 years because I've got a lot of walking to do still. Yeah. I'll see you in a decade. Yeah. Wow. So if people want to support you or find you on social media, any of that stuff, where do they look?
I'm most prolific on Instagram, where I try and update it frequently. But to be honest, it's just been like I've been a bit burnt out lately, and I've just been doing a lot of stories. I try and do a day a week where everyone can see it, but then the members get to see my stories every other day of the week as a benefit for them. And I also have a YouTube channel that I've been working on posting to as often as possible as well. So if you look for Tangles and Tail, that's like my hair is always in knots, so that's Tangles and then Wombat's tail, you'll be able to find my Instagram that way. Yeah, or you can just search Lucy Barnard online and you'll get all of it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. You had some really great information. It was such an honor to be able to speak to you.
Yes.
I mean, I know probably, being in the middle of it, you're like, oh, whatever. It's not that big of a deal, but it's a huge deal.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal what you're doing, girl. And
I really
keep killing it.
Thanks for saying that. I appreciate it. But it's also, overlanders, learning from them. It's really great hearing your stories as well. So thank you for having me. Yeah, it does just feel like I'm a dank hiker, but
you are a dirty hiker.
I didn't start walking until I was 2 years old, which is super late. And so my mum thinks it's a big deal.
Now we can't get you to stop.
Mom's right.
Yeah. Mom's very happy that you're walking finally.
Yeah, she is. She's stoked. Really stoked.
Roaming the earth. Yeah. Goodness gracious, girl.
Oh my.
Well, we wish for you a whole bunch of safety. We'll keep you in our thoughts and prayers and follow
Keep in
you
touch.
when you get that map back up. Yes, I'm excited for you. And this is an awesome, awesome journey.
Yes.
Thanks so much.
Thank you all for watching tonight. And this podcast will be uploaded onto Spotify and Apple Podcasts probably tomorrow morning
Mhm.
if my internet, cooperates. So
Ah,
to hear the audio version there. And thank you so much. Remember to subscribe on YouTube for both us and for Lucy. And follow us on IG and Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thank you all. Have a
we'll
great
see
night.
you Wednesday.
Bye. Oh, yeah, Wednesday.
Wednesday.